My name is David Bailey. I'm the curator of history at the Museum of Western Colorado. Today we're going to talk about Asian art. Is it genuine or is it a reproduction? We'll first look at ivory. And ivory is probably one of the most reproduced art objects that's not real. A lot of the ivory that you see today is either resin or plastic. But there's a couple of tricks about ivory that you can find out if it's actually the real McCoy. One is you get a 10-power loop. And if you look at the top of the ivory, it has cross-hatching all the way around it. And this cross-hatching is irregular and it can't be reproduced. And if it is reproduced, when they fake it, they actually make it very uniform. The other thing about real ivory is the detail of the carving. Like this piece was carved several hundred years ago, and the detail is just exquisite, and they can't do that in a resin mold. One quick way to tell if it's made out of plastic or resin is the color. Usually it's solid white or solid yellow if it's a fake. With real ivory, you'll notice the patina has yellow and white, and it's very mottled. This is a village scene, and you can see the little pagodas and the little trails and the horses, which is really hard to replicate in a mold from a factory. So that's several of the ways that you can tell if it's real ivory or if it's a fake. Next, I'd like to talk about carved jade. And jade's a really unusual material because it's very dense. So if you touch jade, it's always cold. That's one way you know it's really jade. And a lot of people don't know that. And I've kind of done that experiment with people that are amazed. When you touch the jade, it's always cold. Now, if you have a reproduction of jade, it's usually glass or plastic. And in this case, it's glass. And it's actually warm. It's the same temperature as the environment because it's not very dense. And jade, by its nature, is carved. And if you look at the surface, it has a lot of modeling, and you can see dark areas in the jade. It's not uniform. And jade is somewhat translucent, whereas these fakes, like this one, it's all very uniform. You can't really see through it. And you'll notice at the bottom, you can see it almost looks like there's a mold on it. Jade comes in many, many different colors. So it can be, this shade, it can be lighter. But like this piece, same thing, it's solid, it's not translucent. And you notice the bottom, these cutting marks, they're actually from a factory where they cut it off the mold. So, just a couple simple things like that. Just touch the jade and just look at the color. Is it translucent? Does it have, irregularities in it? And that's how you'll know if it's real jade or not. I'd like to talk about cinnabar. And cinnabar carving has been around for thousands of years in China. And it's just a beautiful piece of art, but if you notice, it's kind of red in color. And how they produce it is they create a mold, like this is a ceramic vase, and then they coat it. And this probably has 100 coats of lac, and lac from the lac tree, which we call lacquer. So the 100 coats of lacquer are put on carefully and uniformly, and then they're carved, and they can make just beautiful, intricate designs inside the cinnabar, and you can notice right off the bat it's very detailed. But how do you tell if it's fake or not? I'll show you a fake cinnabar. This has that nice dark color, but notice there's no detail. It's just very shallow. There's no cutting. You can see the molding, and you can see where it was cut off the mold, and even where actually some of the fake cinnabar is missing on some of these objects like this. It's one of the most collectible, but it's also one of the most faked of the Asian arts. The interesting thing about ceramics is they always had a dynasty mark, and you can see the dynasty mark from whoever was the emperor at the time. But throughout hundreds of years, the Chinese loved the earlier periods, so they'd recreate the art from earlier periods. A lot of the modern fakes aren't very detailed. Now this piece, you can see there's 3 women sitting at a desk and they're reading, but you can notice there's a lot of detail in this. The more modern fake Japanese and Chinese ceramics, they don't have a lot of detail. But always look for the dynasty mark and then check it with a reliable source, and you can tell if your piece is actually real or if it's a reproduction.